What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here, reporting for Status Coup. So, I first heard this analogy from a book that Cory Doctorow authored called Choke Point Capitalism. First of all, check out that book. It's a really good book, but I saw this analogy in that book that I think is a very good one. Imagine if Amazon was an actual marketplace, like a physical marketplace. It existed in some town or community, and it was a shopping mall or some physical shopping place where there were different stores. And imagine if Amazon, the way Amazon is run, was a real physical place. There'd be one dude who's in charge of everything. And that one dude also sells his own products and services. And of course, his products and services are prioritized. He gets the best storefronts, the most foot traffic, and everybody else just sort of gets whatever is left over. And if you have a product that the community is liking, you're selling a lot of said product, what he can do is he can come in, he can make a generic version of your product, put it at a lower price, and not only sell his generic version of the product, but he can also push you down to the basement or some other area where nobody goes and give himself multiple storefronts of said generic products. So everybody's going to see that first, and no one's going to realize that you exist in the basement. You don't even have a way of telling them that. That would be what Amazon would be like if it was a physical storefront. You're thinking, well, that sounds like the worst situation in the world for everybody except for that one dude. I bet nobody would agree to that. Well, here's the thing. In the digital world, you don't really have a choice because guess what? Amazon is responsible for over 50% of all online commerce. So there you have it. Now, there was a large antitrust effort to try to begin breaking this sort of thing up. There were two antitrust bills, OMA and ACOA, and there was a large grassroots effort from Fight for the Future, along with myself and some digital rights organizations, to try to get these bills passed. Here is the old website. This is antitrustvotenow.com. Basically, before the end of the year last year, these bills were floating around the Senate. Senator Schumer needed to call a vote. Senator Schumer did not want to call a vote. What these bills would have done is they would have stopped that practice by Amazon. First of all, they would have made the App Store more accessible to third-party and alternative apps, broken up Apple's stranglehold on app stores. And it also would have broken up Google's practice. See, what Google does is they will prioritize their websites and their search results over other search results. So they'll do what's called data scraping, where they scrape data from other websites, pass it off as their own, and then that other website doesn't get the web traffic. Google does instead, and it's not Google's content. That's what they do. They still do that. These bills started whittling away at that. It was basically antitrust enforcement in the digital space. And because we live in a global village now, we live in a digital village, that antitrust enforcement is very important. Now, unfortunately, as you may recall, we lost that fight. This was unfortunately an unsuccessful effort. Chuck Schumer, again, who has a ton of conflicts of interest with big tech, Chuck Schumer, along with everybody else who was against these bills, and there were Democrats and Republicans who were against it. There were also Democrats and Republicans who supported it. But Chuck Schumer was able to wait out the clock. He didn't bring this up to a vote. He was able to wait out the clock. And we lost that battle, unfortunately. And if you recall, that was a tough loss for me. I was really bummed out about it. I talked about it nonstop on my show and my YouTube channel, along as well here on Status Coup as well. And we lost that one. And I took it pretty hard. It was right around the holidays, too, when we lost. So I was very, very upset. Well, guess what? There's a little bit of promising news here. Check this out. This is from Causes. FTC expected to file lawsuit against Amazon. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission is finalizing its long-awaited antitrust lawsuit against Amazon. While the exact details of the final lawsuit are not known at this time, that is an important detail to make note of, observers think it could be filed as soon as this month, being September 2023. If the lawsuit is successful, it could lead to a court-ordered breakup and restructuring of the $1.3 trillion company. FTC chairperson Lina Khan rose to prominence with the publication of the 2017 academic paper that criticized Amazon's structure and practices, arguing that they pose clear antitrust concerns. I think that's a pretty safe argument. I think that is a very safe argument. Before filing the lawsuit, the FTC will have to give Amazon's executives and attorneys a final chance to plead their case before the commissioners. That'll be an interesting case to hear. So what's the background of this? So this probe actually began during Trump's administration with an investigation into Amazon, Google, Meta Platforms, and Apple. In the course of the probe, the FTC has interviewed dozens of witnesses, including CEO Andy Jassy and former CEO and founder Jeff Bezos. The FTC has collected reams of documents over the past 3 years to build its case. In June, the regulator sued Amazon in another case, accusing the company of enrolling millions of customers into a $139 per year paid subscription without their consent. So what will the lawsuit target? The lawsuit will likely suggest structural remedies that could break the company up. We don't know the details of those structural remedies. The FTC is expected to argue that Amazon unfairly compels sellers to use its in-house logistics, shipping, and warehouse services. That's basically what I described at the beginning of the video. They for sure do that. Prime may be targeted for its bundle of diverse services it offers, as it may be an example of an unlawful monopoly. The lawsuit may also target Amazon's digital advertising business, which could be used to force merchants to buy ads in order to get better placements, which is also something they do. They screw over your placement, and you can kind of get a little bit better in the results, but you got to pay for it. The FTC complaint is similar to existing cases brought by attorneys generals in California and Washington, D.C., which target Amazon's rule requiring third-party retailers to offer their lowest prices on the platform, preventing them from listing lower prices elsewhere, like on their own company website. Amazon has previously disputed these allegations. So, little bit of promising news, a lot of details we don't know yet. So, this is a good thing that it's at least gotten to this point. I'll be honest, I'm pleasantly surprised it even got to this point. But we don't know the details. This could be anything from a barely existent slap on the wrist where Jeff Bezos has to pay some fine that is absolutely nothing to him, which, by the way, is most amounts of money. I mean, any fine they could give him would be, I mean, he generates, how much money per second does that guy make? It's something obscene. Like actually, here, let me Google it real quick here. How much money does Jeff Bezos make per second? Makes $5,422,000 per second. So $5,422 per second. Jesus, every second. That's how much money that guy's made. He will never want. He is on pace to become the world's first trillionaire. He will never want, his kids will never want, their kids' kids will never want, their kids' kids' kids will never want. He has more money than he could even begin to fathom spending in multiple lifetimes. And they still do stuff like this. So we don't know the details of this lawsuit, but we do know that it's out there, and we might find out more later this month. As of the recording of this is all we know. But that could be updated as soon as tomorrow or shortly after this video actually drops. So I don't know if I can go as far as to say this is good news, because we don't, I mean, is there a difference between good news and promising news? This is definitely promising news. Is it promising good news or good promising news? We'll go with good promising news. I like that. So this is promising news, potentially good. It could just be a gestural thing. I mean, this could just be a symbolic thing where the FTC wants to be like, hey, look, we're doing something. We find Jeff Bezos, however much money, which to him is the equivalent of giving away a stick of gum for a normal person. So it could be that, or it could be a real breakup of Amazon. Let's keep in mind the last time we saw significant antitrust legislation in this country was in the 1980s. And by the way, Reagan was in the White House. Reagan, not a big antitrust guy, but sometimes these types of things can happen, even if there's not, great people in the political realm. This big antitrust happened during Reagan. And they broke up the phone companies. They broke up there was a monopoly on the phone company. They broke it up. And you know what that led to? All of a sudden, long distance calling got way cheaper. It got way cheaper. I believe it was AT&T that pretty much had the monopoly. They broke AT&T up. Long distance calls got way cheaper. If you're an elder millennial like me or older, you remember those days. You remember when long distance calling cost an arm and a leg. Like it was obscenely expensive to make a long distance call. So if you were making a long distance call, like I remember sometimes we would do a long distance phone call to my cousins in South Carolina, and my parents would be like, all right, they'd have a stoplight. They're like, say hello to your cousin. I'd be like, hey man, what's up? Like, all right, you're done. Get off the phone. Like, he's just ask him how he's doing. How are you doing? I'm good. How are you? I guess I'm okay. I got to get off the phone. My parents are flipping out because I guess this costs $1,000 a second or whatever it is. I remember those days. And then all of a sudden, they broke the monopoly up. And guess what? Prices got down because more people were able to compete. More entities were able to compete. It led to such brilliant inventions such as the answering machine and the modem, which, of course, these things later led to the internet as we know it today. I'm not suggesting that the internet wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this antitrust enforcement. I'm sure the internet was still going to happen anyway. But it kind of helped things along from a technological standpoint. That means that antitrust is a good thing. It's good for the economy, it's good for workers, and it's good for innovation, even though they try to claim the opposite. Antitrust is good for innovation because when you have a monopoly, everything's being held back. We don't know what the internet's even capable of because you have entities like Amazon and Jeff Bezos and Apple and Google pretty much monopolizing the digital space. So we don't even know what is possible with a future Google or a future Amazon or multiple Amazons in the world. We can't even fathom that yet because these entities need to be broken up and they haven't yet. So this could be the start of the next chapter of the internet in a good way. That's what this. So this is huge. There is huge potential here. It could also end up being absolutely nothing. It could end up being like, Jeff Bezos had to pay the equivalent of a penny for a regular person. So we'll keep an eye on this, and hopefully this is a revolutionary moment for the internet eventually. It has the potential to be that. Chances are it's going to be somewhere in between nothing and a big something. Chances are. But here's hoping for the best, right? We'll keep an eye on this, and we'll bring you updates as they become available. And folks, I got a big show coming up October 21st, San Pedro, California, my neighborhood. It's my last big show of 2023. Now, there have been Status Coup listeners, Status Coup community members have shown up to every show I've had this year, including overseas in Edinburgh, Scotland. So let's keep up the momentum. I got to see some representation in my own neighborhood. Come on, Los Angeles. San Pedro, if you're not in the San Pedro area, it's a wonderful place to spend a Saturday. Come to the beach, stick around for the show, grab dinner at a fine eatery nearby. If you want a restaurant recommendation, email me. I'll give you my list of favorites. And there's a phenomenal show. Myself and Stephanie Blum, she's been on Nickelodeon, HBO, MTV, you name it. One of my favorite comics in all of LA. October 21st, myself and Stephanie. It's 8 p.m. It's Saturday night. Get your tickets at romplacone.com. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.